Hello, my dudes. Welcome back to Internet Analysis. Today, I want to talk about Mormon family vloggers and tradwives facing backlash and rebranding. I've seen a lot of similar themes swirling in the culture lately. Nara Smith, Yesteryear, Ballerina Farm. Then I started reading this book about influencer kids. There's much to discuss. Let's start with Mormons, as briefly as we can. Even though only about 2% of Americans are LDS, many of the most popular influencers, especially within mommy blogging and family vlogging, are Mormon. So how did this happen? Why are Mormon influencers so overrepresented? I have long been fascinated by this. There are many contributing factors. First of all, being beautiful, thin, rich, white, with tons of cute kids automatically gives you a leg up in the influencing world. These creators seem to be living perfect lives with their perfect families. It's aspirational, but somehow still relatable. Another major thing to consider is Mormon doctrine. Mormons are encouraged to document their lives and family histories. Girls are encouraged to journal from a young age. Even scrapbooking was actually popularized by a Mormon woman. So the idea of filming your daily life with your family is a natural extension of this. Make home videos and, better yet, share them with the world. And with the rise of new technologies and social media, the church has actively encouraged its members to become digital missionaries.
Their main points of contact with others, even with close friends, is often via the internet. The very nature of missionary work, therefore, must change.
I urge the graduates to use the advances in technology to become involved in the worldwide conversation about the church.
To help transform the trickle into a flood, I exhort you to sweep the earth with messages filled with righteousness and truth.
I think another big part of this is that the Mormon church has been trying really hard to rebrand. They actually don't want to be called Mormon. They prefer LDS, or the full name, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I'm going to say Mormon. Mormons have had a pretty bad reputation in the US. According to this Pew poll, Mormonism has the lowest favorability rating out of all major religions. And this video is obviously not meant to be a comprehensive history of Mormonism. That would take a while. But the church has been known for being highly controlling, extremely patriarchal, racist, anti-gay, and they can't escape the stain of polygamy, which their founder encouraged and practiced, plural marriage. Even today, there are still fundamentalist offshoots that are even more atrocious, even more abusive cults. But even on the surface, if you're only familiar with like the Book of Mormon on Broadway, incredible show, many Americans just feel like Mormons are weird. You might encounter a dorky pair of missionaries knocking on your door, so you hide and pretend like nobody's home. No, I don't want to talk about Jesus Christ. That is why the digital missionary concept is so revolutionary. Without you even realizing it, a Mormon may still end up in your living room as you watch them on your phone or your TV. You'll be influenced by this awesome content creator who just happens to be Mormon. Their new media strategy is basically low-key LDS.
It doesn't have to be a gospel message. We are the gospel message. Just be normal and natural. Simply describing what you did over the weekend, which included going to church and perhaps teaching a Sunday school class. What can you do about your life, about your family, about your children that highlights the gospel, but it's not an in-your-face, overt, come have the missionaries come to your home. Just live the gospel. Let some of that be in your social media posts, and it will create a curiosity.
And hey, maybe eventually some will become members. So we've got that. At the same time, we've also seen the rise of tradwife content in recent years. And many of the most popular tradwife creators are Mormon. Nara Smith, Hannah Nealman. So these concepts are inextricably linked. Correction, Nara actually has said she is not Mormon, though her husband, Lucky Blue Smith, comes from a generational Mormon family. It's hard to say when it comes to any of the examples or anyone I use for B-roll in this video. Plenty of people were raised Mormon, but no longer practice. Some people still consider themselves members, but are like less active. As with any religion, you have the more devout, active members, and then you have more casual members who maybe don't follow every rule, but may still consider themselves associated with the religion. You come across a beautiful mother. She's had 8 children, but is somehow incredibly thin, and she has the time to put on a dress and do her hair, then cook fresh meals, bake from scratch, sew and milk the cows. Tradwife content often involves prairie dresses or more of a 1950s housewife aesthetic. It's beautiful, chic, refreshing, inspiring. It presents the dream of being a stay-at-home wife or mother. Your strong masculine husband is the breadwinner, so you can just be a homemaker, raise the kids, and live a softer life like women used to. Wink, wink. To many girls and women, this message sounds incredibly appealing, especially in this precarious economy with stressful jobs and low pay. Many dream of being able to opt out, stay home. And this extends beyond just tradwife content. As I've argued in other videos, for many people, becoming an influencer is the new American dream. Working from home, choosing your own flexible hours, and if you're successful, there really is no income ceiling. You could earn millions. This prospect, this dream is appealing to a lot of people, but especially moms. Often their careers suffer when they have children, or they're forced to quit their jobs because childcare is just too expensive to justify. Many moms seek opportunities for some kind of flexible work that they can do, during naps or when the kids are asleep. It would be nice to be able to earn some income for the family. Imagine if you could just document your regular everyday life and earn a ton of money. But going back to tradwife content, it is not real. The lifestyle they're selling is a lie. Tradwife influencer is a paradox. Being a content creator, especially a successful one, is a job. It is paid labor. You are working. A real tradwife could not have a job, and she absolutely could not be the breadwinner. Another part of the facade, as mirrored in Yesteryear and featured in this book, is the fact that many, if not all, of these most popular mom influencers actually have teams of domestic help. Their content tries to sell the idea that they do it all, but they don't. They have full-time nannies, tutors, house cleaners, and production assistants. It takes a lot of people doing a lot of work to create this vision of a mother managing her large, busy household effortlessly. True tradwives exist, but you probably won't see them on TikTok. They're quite literally too busy doing all that labor, and they're actively being oppressed. They're oppressed by their husbands and patriarchal religious structures. I listened to this interview with ex-tradwives who were deconstructing, and it is deeply sad, but really, really fascinating. Very happy that they've gotten out.
But before we continue, this portion of today's video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is an eSIM service app that lets you choose from affordable eSIM plans in over 200 destinations. When you're traveling abroad, you do not want to get stuck without reliable phone service. These days, we are doing literally everything on our phones: directions, finding restaurants, keeping up with your loved ones. So this is a must. eSIMs are much more convenient and easy than physical SIM cards. So you don't have to worry about going to pick one up and having to swap them out when you're traveling to different countries. Just download the Saily app and pick which eSIM plan you want. So for example, let's say I'm going on a European trip, I'm gonna visit multiple countries. You can actually pick regional plans. I'm gonna need at least 5 gigabytes. And these prepaid plans are really great to ensure that you don't go over your data limits. The worst thing is getting a surprise massive phone bill after traveling. So this makes sure you're locked down, and if you end up needing more data, you can add more. Don't forget to use code TIFFANYFERG to get 15% off your plan. Check out and boom, activate your data plan and you are good to go. The Saily app now offers app-based phone numbers that you can utilize while traveling, which is really great because everything asks for your number nowadays. Shops, apps, deliveries. So you can protect your personal phone number and give out your Saily number instead. Next time you're planning to travel abroad, download the Saily app or go to saily.com/TiffanyFerg. Use code TiffanyFerg to get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily data plans. Happy travels! Send me pictures!
Continuing on, there has been so much discourse around tradwife content, whether you're genuinely interested or you hate watch it. It's strangely magnetic. While some argue this is just good, clean content. It's nice to see positive pro-family stuff on social media. You cannot ignore the broader socio-political context. We've been in this conservative cultural swing. Women's rights are being attacked and taken away. So this message is dangerous. Let's not roll back the clock to when women had zero autonomy. And this is why Yesteryear has been so popular. It's very relevant to the moment. If you're unfamiliar somehow, a tradwife influencer performs this lifestyle, romanticizing what life was like back in the day. So simple, so natural. But what would happen if she actually had to live it? What if she went back in time? Would frontier life really be so romantic? No spoilers, but no. I personally love my birth control, bank account, my vote, not to mention electricity and plumbing. There was an interesting development in the tradwife world recently. Nara Smith, again, known as one of the most popular tradwife influencers, went on the Call Her Daddy podcast and said, "I'm not a tradwife. And I never claimed to be one. It's really wild to see a creator try to rewrite history, rebrand herself, trying to gaslight the audience to forget what we have seen with our own eyes.
She's trying to say, that's not me. Why would people call me a tradwife? Okay, this might not be an accurate reflection of you, but you've become famous from maybe a character you created that is heavily tradwife coded, soft-spoken, homemaker, spending all day making things from scratch. Like, then yes, the real life context, you're married into a prominent Mormon family, you've been buddies with Hannah Nealman. It's not insane to say you've been a big part of tradwife content online. Again, if that's not your real life, okay, but it is the persona you've created.
I recently noticed that the luster for the lifestyle I've profited from has faded, so I decided to make a new image from scratch. Start with an interview on a popular podcast using your regular voice. Gently fold in details of how your life contradicts the traditional persona you spent years building.
So in today's video, I want to focus on the umbrella of Mormon influencers, specifically in family vlogging. And again, a big source for this episode was this book, Like, Follow, Subscribe by Fortessa Latifi, Influencer Kids and the Cost of a Childhood Online. I feel like I have to check in on the world of family vloggers like every year at least. So I was most fascinated by the parts of this book that are relevant to how family vloggers respond to criticism. There's been this massive backlash against family vlogging in recent years, but so many of these creators seem unbothered. Do they not understand the severity of these issues? The serious ethical questions of putting kids online? The privacy and safety of their own children? To be fair, more and more content creators are taking this to heart. Some have deleted old content of their kids and they're not featuring them anymore. And many new parents are a lot more protective from the start, not showing their kids' faces, not even sharing their names or any other information. And that's great. I love to see it. Or not see it. However, many family vloggers seem to be just digging their heels in. Spoiler, much of their reasoning comes down to their Mormon faith, unsurprisingly. They're basically able to justify family vlogging as a godly mission. So we're gonna dig into that today. And of course, you can never forget about the element of money. That's obviously a big factor here. I do want to point out, again, it is possible to be a content creator who just happens to be a parent, like myself. You can make content and not share a bunch of stuff about your kids. Maybe you work in a completely different genre and it's just not relevant. Or like the original mommy bloggers, many of them wrote about parenthood, motherhood, but they were the primary focus. It was about their experiences and perspectives. However, in the family vlogging realm, it becomes clear very quickly that the kids are the stars of the show. Without them, people would not be watching these videos. So these parents start filming their children all day long, especially when something delightfully embarrassing or dramatic happens, because that is wonderful clickbait and it's gonna get views. And you justify it, convince yourself it's fine and it's good actually. The kids love being in the videos. And most important, you're being honest and raw and relatable and brave. You're helping your viewers and you're showing the world what a real good family looks like. Going back to Mormons having a bad reputation in the US, Latifi writes, quoting history professor Sarah Crabtree, once they ditch the polygamy under immense pressure, Mormons have to prove that their monogamous, heterosexual families are as perfect as anybody else's because they've been maligned for so long. There's this intense focus on the perfect household to help them assimilate and integrate into US society. Podcaster John Dellin agrees. I think in response, we became the all-American church. Latifi writes, perfection became an unofficial doctrine of the Mormon faith. That's a fascinating point, and I do think they've been pretty successful at rebranding what a Mormon family is or how they're seen. Most of us, especially due to this flood of social media content, we've become very familiar with these images of big, happy, usually blonde Mormon families, smiling, spending time together, going to church. They seem harmless. They're just nice. And again, this is part of the Mormon digital mission. Promote the idea of family. Be the example. I also saw this phrase repeated a ton of times in this book. Family vloggers talking about sharing the light. And I was like, okay, this has to be Mormon. And it is. It's a very popular LDS concept. One ex-family vlogger has the pseudonym Sam in the book, and they say, Mormon influencers genuinely believe that we have a light to share with the world. What better way to do that than show your beautiful life with your beautiful home and beautiful children? I think this is a major key in understanding why family vloggers are so resistant to criticism. They see this content as a holy mission. They are doing God's work, and they genuinely think they're special. What they have to offer is so sorely needed. Many do acknowledge that they are still a typical family, and that's part of the appeal, the realness, the relatability, but they are drinking their own Kool-Aid, so to speak. They're really hyping up the grandiosity of this mission and the role that their specific family plays. Their presence on the internet is crucial. Latifi speaks with an LDS family called the Jurgis. Quote, "They maintain their motivations are pure. It's not about money." Dad Bryce says, "The motive is that so when people see it, they want to go spend time with their kids more." Do family vlogs actually encourage people to go hang out with their own kids more? I don't think so, but okay. His wife Nellie says, "I find it funny that there's a lot of backlash with family content. Good family content is so needed right now," she says, and her voice cracks. "I'm getting emotional because I'm seeing families fall apart. As somebody who does believe in God, I know there is a power that's going against families right now, and it makes me more motivated." Obviously, this is a conservative coded point, or blatantly conservative, the attack on families. But this reminded me of something similar that another vlogger said in my video from last summer.
It's like Satan's plan. Satan's plan is to take away families, take away happiness. If anything wholesome, they like want to attack it. Oh, you're exploiting. Whatever they can do to take away like good things in life.
That's so wild to hear. Criticizing family vlogging is Satan's plan.
P.S. This is Madison Bontempo. She is in the cast of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, Orange County, which is coming out later this year. I will be tuned in for research. So yes, this is a very common belief. It's safe to assume that the Mormon sermons talk a lot about this. Families are being attacked, and it's our job to protect and rebuild the institutions of nuclear families. Nellie says, "Putting your life and your family out there is not easy, but I do it because I know that people out there need family content. There's that force of nature that's trying to make family not as important. I will fight that. I will fight it so hard because I'm sacrificing so much of my life to try to put a good message out there." She's crying now. It's hard work, but we're doing it for the right reason. It's so wild to read that, to hear that, and remember, they're talking about being influencers. They're talking about making vlogs for God, the holy mission. Like, yes, I agree that making content and dealing with mean comments is very difficult. Like, it's emotionally taxing. But to genuinely believe that your social media content is so essential, it's wild. They're fighting the good fight, one TikTok at a time. But anyway, obviously the bigger point here is this conservative, religious, pro-family propaganda, because that's what it is. Funny that these political agendas actually attack families. They're harming children. They're taking away social safety nets like SNAP, healthcare, education funding. Does slashing those budgets help families? Does that help children? But at the same time, of course, they say that the crazy leftists are hurting families because we are pro social safety nets. We're pro LGBTQ. We want to protect trans people, trans kids. Right. But yeah, so many of these vlogger families said similar things, that part of their godly mission is to spread light and love, promote good family values, even when that actually involves clickbaiting about their kids being sick or hurt, making them cry on camera, or like sending them on huge shopping sprees. It's all for family, actually. So inspiring. That ex-family vlogger Sam said, "Any parent influencer is constantly fighting feelings of guilt, feelings of questioning, second-guessing yourself, but you learn to bury it and silence it with justifications. We want to be as real and vulnerable with the world as possible. It's courageous to show the reality of a family's life. We're uplifting and encouraging others with our content. We're helping people. We're giving a gift to the world. The gift is ourselves. Our family. Every influencer family I've ever met, including ourselves, had this inherent belief that they had something to offer to the world. They have to believe that this is all for something bigger. Psychologically, they have to convince themselves and their kids that this is a godly mission. They are doing good, important work. They're inspiring people. They're raising awareness of various things. Continuing on, another common critique or question in family vlogging is, what happens if the kids don't want to be filmed? Are they being forced to participate in this work? Unsurprisingly, every family interviewed in this book said, no, the kids love filming, and if they don't want to film, that's okay. We never force it. Though at the same time, tons of participants shared stories of either guilt tripping or bribing their kids with vacations or up to $1,000 cash to get them to just play along and film this brand deal, okay? Mommy and daddy are about to make $40,000. Please. So I would argue, yeah, that falls under forcing the kids kids to film, right? Even if, yes, they get extra treats, they're not making videos for the love of the game. They really have no choice but to work in the family business. And again, we're not talking about helping out at the family restaurant or whatever. Doing this work, being featured in videos or on social media, sacrifices these kids' privacy and their image. They're often filmed like performing in ways that they might not want to, or again, in uncomfortable, stressful, or emotional situations. And they really have no say. So this kind of work carries more weight and a much higher cost, more potential consequences than like helping your parents answer the phone or dropping packages at the post office. This brought me to another interesting realization, or like noticing a pattern. There was this common bit of messaging I saw parroted by a lot of the kids, so clearly their parents have taught them this. The kids would say, "I'm happy to be in these videos because I can help inspire others." For example, this 12-year-old Xander had to get emergency surgery. Yay, amazing content. So his mom films him. He's in this very vulnerable situation. He's like loopy from anesthesia. And the way he explains it, he says, "Being featured in these videos is a good thing because people are looking up to me. It teaches them how a life of 8 kids is." And even though he says he was in intense pain when his mom filmed multiple surgery-related videos, it's okay, he says, because it teaches kids what to do when they have surgery. Latifi writes, "This is such a childish, rosy view of the content that it breaks my heart." And I agree, it is so sweet of him to think of it in that way, but that's not the reality. Mom is not filming this as an educational, informative, like surgery for kids video. She's capitalizing on your pain for views, for content. I think it's really twisted and unfair to teach your kids this. Again, forcing this higher purpose on them just adds to the guilt tripping. Oh, kids, we have to film when bad things happen because we can help people. Our viewers, our fans, we owe them. That's what's most important. Don't you want to help people? So Julie Jepson is the mom I'm referring to. Their channel is The Big Family Jewels. She's now a single mom of 8 kids, raising them alone ever since their dad left the family. And that's terrible. I am sure trying to take care of that many kids is really, really difficult. But at the same time, does that give her a right to exploit her kids? She has posted a crazy amount of videos capitalizing on the kids' pain, fear, and trauma. I searched specifically surgeries. There's at least 12 videos. You see them in hospital beds in the thumbnails, and the titles describe panic, pain, groaning. I hate being reminded how many family vloggers do this constantly. It is so gross. And that's just seeing the thumbnails. Like, I'm not even watching these videos. But the scale of this is actually insane. I went to her videos sorted by most popular, and I was like, okay, how many of these are about like, you know, surgery or pain or whatever? Out of at least her top 50 videos, only about 10 are not something medical. The vast majority of these videos are all the kids being hurt in the hospital, surgeries. It seems like she makes a whole episode every time the kids get their shots. And this really, really pissed me off because I can barely handle, you know, holding my daughter and comforting her and trying to keep my cool when she gets her shots. It's a horrible thing to witness, but I know that it's important. It's necessary. I cannot imagine filming my child scared and in pain to make a YouTube video. Doing that multiple times, posting it online and going, cha-ching, that's gonna get great views. By who? What kind of weirdo viewers are the ones clicking these videos? What kind of viewers love to see kids in pain? There was also a strange amount of videos focused on like the kids' tonsils with like thumbnails of their mouths. And I'm like, hello, what is going through your brain as a parent to think that that is okay and good to post? Deranged. But this mom acknowledged this in the book. Latifi asks, what kind of content garners the most interest? Jepson says, the ones that you're not supposed to post. What does that mean? I ask. The content that performs the best is basically the videos where someone is hurt in some way. Bloody noses, broken arms, the emergency room visit or whatever. It wasn't like we were trying to have those happen. It was just daily life. The amount of teeth that my kids were losing and the amount of broken arms and strep throat that we had among 8 kids, that was my thumbnail every day. And sure, having 8 young kids, I'm sure there are colds all the time and maybe little injuries here and there, but that still seems pretty extreme. Like constant broken bones and frequent surgeries, that's more than just like the kids have a cold, you know? But still, just because it's happening in your household does not mean you have to film it and make that the focus of your content, the title, the thumbnail, the main draw. She's acting like she had no control. She's like, well, just following the whims of the algorithm, you know? Not my fault that more people demand tonsil surgery vlogs. Gotta give them what they want. Huh? Hey, you have free will. Genuinely, you have lost the plot. And that's obviously the real problem. These parents get addicted to the views and the attention. They lose any sense of right or wrong, and they end up caring more about the clicks than the well-being of their own children. It is very disturbing. Sam said, the income increases and your filter just goes right out the window. That moral filter of like, should we be filming this? You don't even care about that anymore. It's just like, will this attract views? Yes or no? Okay, how do we present it in a way that's consistent with our brand, consistent with the messaging we're wanting to share, but still exploit it somehow? So for the sick kid, it was like, okay, we're going to show the kid being sick and vulnerable, but then we're going to show like what supportive and loving parents we are. That's what we're trying to portray. Praise us. That's an interesting point because it's like, yeah, how is showing your sick kids or like exploiting your children crying, how does that fit in this like pro-family messaging? But yeah, it's like, oh, it's parenting. It's showing, you know, the honest and raw reality, the good and the bad. There was another example of this mom framing her exploitative vlogs as helping other kids going through something similar. Latifi describes a video where Jepsen and her kids are in church and her daughter starts crying because it's Father's Day and, you know, their dad left, so this is hurting her. And the mom films this whole moment. Jepsen rubs her shoulder and looks into the camera the whole time. Through the emotional scene, Jepsen only talks to the camera's lens instead of directly to her heartbroken daughter. The entire sequence is uncomfortable to watch. Why do I have a front row seat to this child's sadness? And why is her mother holding the camera instead of using both arms to hold her? It's really, really sad. I cannot imagine going through that as a kid, even as an adult. Quote, this is how Jepsen describes the process of filming that. Basically, she was crying before I pressed record, so I asked if she wanted to film. She said, why? Do you think I should? I say, it's not up to me. If you want to film it though, it's always good because number one, there's a lot of viewers that will watch and say, thank you so much. You helped me get through this day. I was like, India, do you want to share what you're dealing with and see if it might help someone else? Again, what's going on? That's the number one reason. We have to film this because you as a child have to help others. Number two was, oh yeah, and it's good to talk about your feelings. Sure. But yes, pressuring and guilt tripping your child to be extremely vulnerable on social media. And it's like, okay, being vulnerable online when you're an adult and you're consenting, you're making your own content, you have full control over when and how you open up about something. I love vulnerable content online when that creator has autonomy. You're probably not like filming yourself in your very worst moment when you're sobbing. Maybe later you film a reflection, you talk about something, sure. But putting this pressure on children, it's terrible. Let your kids cry. Comfort them with no cameras. Latifi writes, I've read comments that thank her for sharing. It helps. I just don't understand how that is more important than allowing her daughter to experience such an emotional moment privately. Sure, it might help other kids, but other kids aren't her concern. Her daughter is. That's the thing. This whole bigger purpose idea, that is more important. That's placed above the actual needs or wants of the children. And maybe this is specifically a pretty Mormon doctrine. Like I kind of remember that from being raised Christian. Of course, you're encouraged to help other people when you can, but it's like to twist those ideas in a way that actually hurts your kids is beyond messed up. This like culture of like self-sacrifice, it's not healthy. Nellie Jergy said something similar. And personally, I feel like right now, I totally get we have to protect our kids, but we also have to share the beauty of what families are because that's being torn apart in the world today. There's a fine line of protecting your kids, but I also don't think it should stop you from sharing with others the beauty that comes along with having a family. That is a crazy quote. She literally says it twice. Yeah, we have to protect our kids, but she's literally saying, don't let protecting your kids stop you from making bank. Oops, I mean sharing the beauty of family. These pro-family light and love influencers are constantly sacrificing their own kids' privacy and well-being to the algorithm, putting the audience above their children. Another Mormon family channel was asked, is there a point you can imagine stopping the vlog? And the dad goes, we don't have a stopping plan because I think that's unethical to just leave your fans in the dust when they've been following your life for 13 to 14 years. And I'm like, oh my God, of all the things to consider the ethics of. When the haters have been begging you to consider the ethics of putting your kids online, crickets. That's irrelevant. But now it's actually unethical to stop making content, to abandon your viewers because they've invested so much time watching, now you owe them content forever. That is genuinely such a strange worldview. I almost can't handle it. Bottom line, these creators really do have justifications for everything. This is for family, this is for God, this is for our beloved audience. Let's be real, a lot of it is for the money. Sam continues, the deeper you get into it, the more you numb out from it. There's no room for misgivings. There's no room for a conscience at that point. Latifi writes, and how could there be? They were making over $1 million a year. And with that, finally, we get into the money, baby. So we've established that one big factor in why Mormons are overrepresented in this influencer space is because they are told that making content, promoting families is a godly mission. Okay, so it makes sense that a lot of people feel encouraged to do that. Latifi writes, Mormons believe in the prosperity gospel. Making money is godly, and the more money you make, the more righteous you've proven yourself to be, and the influencing industry is incredibly lucrative. This combination is really fascinating. They've convinced themselves that making this specific social media content is godly and righteous, and they're being rewarded with tons of money, which means that God is rewarding them, and therefore all of this must be very good and proof that they're doing everything right. Which again, very much helps to be able to justify when the haters, Satan, is telling you to stop family vlogging, stop exploiting your kids. They're like, yeah, that's exactly what the devil would say. Another very important factor is that content creation might be uniquely lucrative for Mormon influencers compared to other creators because allegedly the Mormon church is bankrolling it. There's a very popular ex-Mormon content creator named Alyssa Grenfell. She made this video 2 years ago discussing her theory about how the church funds Mormon influencers. First of all, important to note that the Mormon church is a business, and it's actually one of the most valuable in the world. It has tons of money to spend on advertising.
It is listed as the #1 wealthiest religion, and it's estimated that they have $236 billion. They're worth as much as Pepsi, and Pepsi spent an estimated $3 billion on advertising alone last year. So if we consider the Mormon church to not be a church, I want you to think of it as a company. They could spend approximately $3 billion on advertising because that's about as much as companies worth the same amount are spending on advertising.
Marketing the church to attract new members who will tithe 10% of their income, so the cycle continues.
And who better to spend that advertising fund on than these women who make the church look like it's the best thing on the planet. I have had people email me and say that they considered joining the church because of Ballerina Farm's content specifically. And so these women are amazing advertisements for Mormonism. And the church wants this to happen. They of course want to encourage the creation of this content that will lead to people being curious about becoming members.
Alyssa, at least in this video, does not say that the Mormon church is like paying influencers for sponsorships necessarily, but her biggest theory is about how the Mormon church pays for ads, Google AdSense, which means on blogs, on YouTube, for content relevant to Mormon keywords. And obviously, most of those ads will end up landing on Mormon channels. And apparently, the ad rates that the church is allegedly paying are extremely high. CPMs or RPMs are these metrics that show how much creators earn from the ads on their videos. And these vary greatly between genres. Some people are only earning, $2 or $3 per thousand views, whereas some genres can earn you about $20 per thousand views. And it's well known that finance, for example, is potentially the most high-paying genre. And this difference in CPM or RPM makes a huge impact on how much the creator earns at the end of the day. If you're getting 100,000 views on a video, this is the difference between earning $300 or $2,000. And then multiply that by your entire catalog of videos. That's a lot of money. According to Alyssa's research, keywords related to Mormonism are basically as high as finance content CPMs. And she even compares this to other religions and nobody is spending this much.
A guess, if a Catholic is $3.58, if Jehovah's Witness is $4.64, just guess how much money it costs to advertise. What's the average ad spend around the keyword term Mormon? $24.71.
And she's like, okay, well, what advertiser would be paying these very high rates for Mormon-related SEO? Perhaps the Church of Mormon that has hundreds of billions of dollars at its disposal? Point being, the Mormon church is so rich, it can definitely afford tons of very expensive advertising, and therefore the church is able to technically indirectly pay Mormon content creators to, again, make this content showing off the Mormon lifestyle casually in a low-key way, but still at the end of the day, promoting Mormonism and this sort of family content. So because the Mormon content creators are seeing unusually high AdSense revenue, maybe 4 times higher than a lot of other content, that is very encouraging. Any of you out there who have ever tried making content, it is rough, especially when you're first getting started and you're earning literal pennies. But when you start earning some real money, that incentive can give you the motivation to keep going. So the Mormon creators are incentivized to post more and more, and others in the community see, oh my God, look at that family. They're getting rich from YouTube. We should start posting too. Mormon influencers' content also tends to be very family friendly, aka ad friendly, which also boosts their earnings. And when it comes to sponsors, they're able to work with massive blue chip companies, household names. They can promote anything related to kids, babies, parenting, food, clothing, anything but coffee and alcohol, basically.
And people said, why are all the mommy bloggers Mormon? It's been a phenomenon on the internet for so long. And I don't think it's because Mormons are good at journaling. I think it's because they're backed by a church that has billions of dollars that is able to funnel them a high amount of money for blogging that is enough that they can keep doing it sustainably, and they don't have to give up and throw in the towel because they're just not making enough money at it. I think that the church has been making it lucrative to be Mormon online for decades.
That is a really incredible point. It is perhaps uniquely profitable to be a Mormon content creator, especially family vlogging, daily vlogging. A lot of these videos are frankly relatively low effort. They're easy to film. And of course, if these channels hire editors, they can just grind out tons of content all the time. I literally cannot imagine how much AdSense revenue they're earning. It really is the perfect combination of being an incredibly profitable content creator. And again, this is a mutually beneficial situation. It's a circular thing. The Mormon church is paying and encouraging members to be content creators, helping them stay afloat, make money. They're collabing with other Mormon creators. They're cross-promoting each other. They keep growing. They continue to tithe and give 10% back to the church. Honestly, for the church, paying for all this marketing is a no-brainer. You're literally almost guaranteed a return on that investment. The church is helping you, you help the church, more new members join the church, they start tithing, the church gets richer, which allows them to expand their influence further. Another interesting component is that even ex-Mo content creators like Alyssa benefit from this. Even though she makes anti-Mormon content or, content that's critical of Mormonism, AdSense just sees the SEO that involves Mormonism, LDS, missions, blah, blah, blah. So even ex-Mormons get some of that sweet, sweet LDS cash, which honestly, I'm happy to hear that. They deserve to make some money back. Okay, so yes, question answered, the Mormon church does pay influencers indirectly via AdSense. But do they work with influencers on sponsored posts, actual ads? In this book, Latifi does allege that yes, influencers have been paid by the church for ads, not just for AdSense. They have been paid for actual sponsorships. She writes, John Dellin tells me the church has a long history of providing resources to Mormon influencers, including brand deals and book deals. They bring influencers to their headquarters in Salt Lake City and provide them with support and exposure opportunities. And this is corroborated by influencer Shannon Bird, who said, yes, the church reached out to her when her blog first started getting popular around 2011 and asked if she wanted to do sponsored campaigns for them. She said, it would be like me doing charity. Like today we're giving to the homeless, so I'd go out and get rotisserie chickens. I think it was like an advertisement. Influencers are bigger than a billboard. I had 1 million people on my website a week. That's bigger than 2 missionaries going out. And this makes sense, again, with the low-key LDS marketing. The church is not paying for ads that say, hey, come join Mormonism. They're paying for the Mormon lifestyle. They're trying to promote what it's like to be a Mormon in a more casual, non-threatening way. Latifi writes, Shannon tells me that the post didn't tie directly back to the church. It wasn't like she was tagging them or anything, but it seems the idea was to pay her and other Mormon influencers to do things that reflect well on the church. It's an indirect commercial for Mormonism. The beautiful mom blogger giving out rotisserie chickens. This is apparently from their hashtag Light the World campaign. Again, spread the light. But I find this concept really interesting. This is a paid post, but you're not tagging the brand, the church. So does that make this an undisclosed ad? Though, can it be an ad if you're just promoting like an idea, a concept, a hashtag? This one being charity, light the world. I actually emailed the FTC a couple of questions and they did quickly respond, but they basically said, it depends. case-by-case basis. So not very helpful. I personally, though, think it is shady to be paid to promote something, even if it is just a concept, this nebulous idea, and not declare it as an ad or a collaboration, something. We've had this problem in the influencer space when it comes to political sponsorships because apparently they don't fall under FTC guidelines, and somehow there's like a loophole for political content where you don't have to disclose when you've been paid, which seems crazy, right? But anyway, I was actually offered a similar deal. It wasn't political, but it was promoting like a concept, a good concept. And it was kind of intriguing to me. I was like, okay, let's hear more about this. But then they specifically said that they did not want me to label it as an ad or to tag the organization that was bankrolling it. And so I canceled the deal. I was like, I will not post something that I've been paid for and like use this hashtag, but not disclose it as an ad. To me, especially with what I do, I could never justify that. But it's definitely like a murky area in the influencer marketing space. And I would really like to have more clarity on this. It's like, yeah, you've got these like, they could be potentially good organizations or they could be shady organizations, dark money, putting funding into these campaigns, promoting ideas and concepts and potentially politicians. And yet the audience doesn't even get a disclosure. Hey, this is an ad. Hey, this is a paid post. Who's funding this? Anyway, Shannon Bird said she felt bad charging her church her usual rate of $4,500 per post, so she asked them for $1,000. But once someone in the church accidentally sent her an email with other influencers' rates, and she realized other Mormon influencers were not charging the church a special lower rate. They're charging their market rate. Some people were getting paid up to $8,000 for a sponsored post. Allegedly, according to Shannon Bird, the Mormon church paying $8,000 to its influencers to shine the light, you know?
Oh my God, I forgot to mention that Mormon missionaries who spend 2 years of their life out there working for the church, they're unpaid. Don't get me started, I say near the end of a 45-minute video.
However, I will note in recent years, the church has insisted that it no longer pays influencers for sponsorships, as in paid posts that live on the influencers' accounts. However, they still do social media marketing. They hire agencies who hire UGC creators to do campaigns, meaning the church is hiring contractors, content creators, to create content. They get paid just like any freelance job, but the content goes on the church's own accounts rather than the influencers, you know, sending it to their own audiences. So the church argues they are simply paying for marketing and they are hiring professionals who know how to make content. And that just so happens to be content creators. Again, it's kind of like an interesting bit of language. Is the Mormon church hiring influencers to promote Mormon ideals? Yes. They're like, but technically kind of not in that way. Maybe? I don't know. Again, there's blurred lines and it gets obviously extra messy because we're talking about a lot of times like people's testimonials and they're talking about their faith or their experience, you know, relevant to being a Mormon. So for some people, again, even just that idea of like being paid by your church or being paid to talk about your faith, some people disagree with that, you know, at a baseline. And I do have to admit, I am still skeptical. I would not be surprised if the church were still paying influencers to just be good Mormons, you know? And of course I have no proof, so this is just a silly idea from my brain. It's all alleged. But yeah, like they financially support, it's probably through like, again, a marketing agency that's associated with the church. So there might be like layers of financial, different companies and stuff. But if the money is ultimately coming from the church and flowing down to influencers, and maybe, yeah, there's no script, there's no specific campaign brief, but they are just, again, giving you a financial incentive to low-key promote the LDS life. And what's so wrong with that, right? I'm like, please don't come for me, Mormon church. This is all alleged. Obviously, I have no evidence. I have no proof. But again, I stand by the fact that I think promoting a concept, an idea, a specific faith-based lifestyle, being paid to do that, and yet still not having to disclose it does seem like a big loophole to me, as somebody who cares about, I don't know, the integrity of social media. Okay, so finally we get to final thoughts. To go back to the initial point of this video, basically I wanted to learn a little bit more about Mormon influencers. I have long been fascinated by Mormon mommy bloggers and vloggers, family vloggers in general, and that group essentially is a circle. And I think I kind of knew some of these, you know, reasons or justifications prior, but especially in reading this book, which I do recommend, like, follow, subscribe, to read over and over again all these different different Mormon family vloggers saying the same things, having the same justifications, it just makes sense. It's like, okay, yeah, like they have a pretty united messaging front. These Mormon influencers have major financial incentives. They have huge earning potential. They have community and church support, plus the prosperity gospel, and ultimately believing that this work of content creation is godly and that they're doing their part to promote this faith. Latifi writes, for Mormon influencers, their faith and jobs as influencers become so intertwined that they are practically inextricable from each other, according to Sam. There becomes this confusion between social media and their faith and their testimony. If it's godly to be prosperous, and influencing is what allows for a family to be prosperous, then is influencing godly? And I genuinely think a lot of these creators do believe that, which is very, very interesting. Never listen to the haters. It's just Satan trying to stop you from doing your good work. And then, yeah, when it comes to the entire tradwife sphere specifically, there's a lot more that goes into that, but I think a lot of these same elements are still at play. Again, I think that these tradwife influencers, whether they're posting on TikTok or they're posting on Instagram, whatever, blogs, they still have those same financial benefits from the church, from the Google AdSense. They're gaining extra opportunities and connections within the church, which, like, again, the Mormon church itself is very rich, and also a lot of Mormons are very rich, including Hannah Nealman's father-in-law, one of the richest Mormons in the world. So they clearly still have the financial incentives, and who knows if they also believe that their tradwife influencing is godly. I'm sure they do. They're promoting good families. In terms of the tradwife rebrand, I think that is deserving of its own video. It'll be interesting to see if this ends up being a broader trend amongst Mormon or more conservative influencers, especially when it comes to Nara Smith, like trying to distance herself from that label of tradwife or tradwife content and positioning herself as more of a girl boss, more of a successful woman who, yes, she's married and she has all these kids and she loves to cook, but she loves to dress well and she loves her business and she loves having a supportive husband who wants her to do well, you know, and saying that she has an egalitarian marriage, basically. It's very interesting. So that is that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for future internet analysis videos. If you've made it this far, please leave a comment. It really does help let the algorithm know that you enjoyed this. I cannot believe, oh my God, I should have worn my I should have worn a Mormon mommy blogger dress in this episode. Hello? Is it too late? Should I put one on for the thumbnail? Also, shout out to my second channel. I made a video recently about the going out outfit of jeans and a black top. I just love digging into a very silly, light topic and taking it very seriously, but not too serious because it's second channel. You know what I mean? Okay. Well, God bless. Au revoir. A real tradwife. Wait.